doing things a little bit differently. We just did an article recently about toxic management, and so we wanted to come up and talk a little bit about that. Give you guys a little insight as to why we did that article. Give you a little backstory as to that, as to the importance of that, so you kind of understand how toxic management actually works from our perspective, actually from our personal experiences, our experiences professionally as well too. But more importantly, this is really to bring it home, right? We want you to understand how this affects your business, how this affects your customer experience. Because toxic management just doesn't affect your employees. It affects every aspect of your business, from your revenue streams, as well as to simple things like reviews, right? The things that you find online. We're in the business of reputation management, something that we do in our business here at Northgate Strategic Partners, Altitude Fitness Management Group. We manage in several different lines in restaurants, and particularly in the fitness space. Really, that's our niche. But one of the things that we want to do is we always want to ensure that as we go through these different phases, we write these articles that you truly understand why we're doing it and where we're coming from with it. So that being said, we did an article a couple of days ago on toxic management, and the intent of that article was to help bring to the forefront the examples and the ways in which you could actually identify and actually address and deal with that, more so from an employee perspective, not so much from a customer perspective, but the same exists, right? If you're a customer, you go to the same place all the time, you deal with the same people, you deal with the same companies and businesses, you should be able to see a toxic environment, an environment in which is not conducive to your spending money there or actually being a patron there. You should be able to see that, and identifying that could be key to you as a customer actually deciding whether or not you're going to actually give a genuine review or just give a review based on just a surface level what you see. So this is the reason why we're doing this video, so we can give more information and actually teach you guys, show you how to actually identify those things. So let's talk a little bit about toxic management. What is toxic management? Toxic management is any workplace environment or any environment in which management on any level, whether it's senior level management, whether it's low level management, being field management, any management structure or business structure in which the environment that's created is hostile. Meaning, for customers, you walk in a store, the employees are angry, the employees are aggressive. You walk in, you don't feel welcome. That's a hostile environment. That creates a hostile environment for you as a customer. It also can be that it's a hostile workplace environment, and usually 9 out of 10 times it's a good indication of what's happening in the backgrounds, something that you may not be able to see right off the bat. So it's really important to understand that when you walk in a business and you see that, that's probably a trigger. That's probably a hint for you that you should ultimately, pay attention to that sign of something actually happening and going on there. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what toxic management is. It's any environment which there's hostility, where there's a hostile environment created based on the actions of the individuals who are responsible for the people in that environment, whether it's employees or customer. Now, that being said, really getting down to the nitty and gritty of that, what constitutes hostile workplace environments or a toxic management environment or a toxic manager for that matter? Well, that's really simple, right? A person who micromanages, a person who is a nitpicker, a person who simply is disrespectful, a person who looks to shift blame, a person who does not accept responsibility, a person who is constantly and consistently always looking for a way to deflect, a person who is, or an environment in which there is always tension between employees, there's division, even between customers and business owners, or customers and the reality of what it is, right? If you're buying, let's say, food, for example, you want to go in a place where you feel comfortable. You may feel disconnected from the store, from the environment. All those are hostile workplaces. All those are hostile environments, community environments, and that's some of the things that we want to try to avoid as we move forward. That being said, now that we've identified those, the real question is, how do you actually deal with those? And that's really simple, right? For the employee, I think it's really important to understand that, being able to identify these hostile workplace environments is extremely important, not only for you, but for your overall health and well-being. Being able to identify that a manager is not on your side and will never be on your side, that a manager creates division, that a manager is being rather discriminatory or decisive or divisive for that matter when it comes to you. Those are all signs of toxicity in the workplace. A manager who constantly, micromanages might specifically target you and may not target other employees, may specifically, create arguments around conversations, Those are all signs of a very, very toxic workplace environment. And being able to handle that means that you should have a good documentation of what actually has been happening. Event documentation is extremely important. So timeline based event documentation, meaning that you have a timeline set up from the minute that the argument or conversations begin till the time that you decide that it's time to bring this to the forefront to the people, the superiors, the people who are responsible for this. That is ultimately what you are supposed to do. Create a timeline, date, time, and the nature of the conversation. Extremely important to you having a successful argument as well as successful grievance process when you actually start to do that. The next thing here that's really important is really being able to, I think communication is always going to be key. Have a conversation with the person who you're actually having a conflict with. See where their head is at. Not all the time because a manager or someone is actually aggressive means that it's a personal thing. Sometimes it's something that has to do with them. They may be going through something personal in life. So before you actually make those moves, we want to always try to identify whether or not they are actually dealing with this as well, honestly and with integrity. A lot of times that's not the case, but we always want to give people the benefit of the doubt and ensure that that's what's happening. In the event you find out that that's not the case, then the next step for you is to move on. And you move on by ultimately creating some sort of communication or some sort of network connection with the people who are above that, which is the HR department, generally speaking. A supervisor or manager who is above that individual. In a lot of cases, I can speak for the fitness world, that would be either your regional managers, your vice presidents, or whoever is responsible for your district and your markets. You want to reach out to those people and say, hey, listen, I'm not having a good vibe, or I'm not having a relationship the way I anticipated with this individual. It's not going the way it's supposed to. These things have occurred. Bring it to their attention, because then it gives them an opportunity to address it. They are representatives of the company, and their responsibility is not to just the managers, is to you as well. I think another thing that to remember is this, is that when we feel a certain type of way, it's not always the way that it really is. And we also have to be very careful with our feelings. But if something continues to happen time and time again, consistently, over and over and over, it just can't be our feelings. We have to be realists about the situation. We have to accept it for what it is. It usually is the person. And protecting that person is never going to be a good thing. So when you see and identify over time that this is a situation that will never change, there's one or two things you can do. You can either retreat, pack up, and leave, or you can stand up and fight. And when we say stand up and fight, we mean you can stand up for your rights. As an employee, you have rights. As a customer, you have rights. Everyone in the business world, everyone has a right. You have a right to, obviously, once you are hired to work for someone, you have a right to a peaceful workplace environment. You have a right to, come to work every day and experience the job at its fullest capacity and potential without being harassed. You have a right to those things. That is your legal right. That is your right under law. That's not just someone making that up. And employers are responsible for ensuring that employees do not feel hassled, harassed, or haggled. If you fail to do it as an employer, you are just as guilty as the person who is perpetrating the acts. As a customer, you also have a right to enter into any establishment, any store, any place that you go, and feel the same. You are to feel as if you're welcomed. You're to feel as if the business actually wants you there. Now, the business owner is under no obligation to serve you, because there's a little known legal concept known as under reservation of rights. It's called reservation of rights. They reserve the right to serve who they want to and deal with who they want to. However, that does not come without any legal ramifications, okay? When we say reservation of rights, there has to be a standard for that. And the standard for that is usually, so long as we're within the non-discriminatory areas, so meaning that we're not discriminating against someone because of race, creed, religion, sex, or any of those factors, simply means that we're on the right track. But the minute you start to discriminate against someone, the minute you become very discriminatory, you look at someone because of their race, because of their creed, and you start to make assessments and assumptions, or just in general because you don't like females or guys, whatever the case may be, that's where it becomes a gray area. You just simply not liking a person is not good enough, because that can also lead in and tie into a very similar type of accusation, and that again it can go down the road of someone who's being retaliatory to men because they had a situation before, and we notice a woman or whatever the case may be, or a particular race group or a certain class of people. So we have to be very careful with that. That falls under Title VII. These are some legal things that we can touch on later on, but this ultimately is what we want to try to avoid, okay? Um, and another thing to remember is this is that when you deal with these situations, you want to always make sure that there are other people to witness it. So one of the keys to this is also always ensuring that you have witnesses, people who can testify, people who can stand up and say, hey, listen, I saw this actually take place, this occurred. This is ultimately what it is. This is what this person did. This is how they responded, how they reacted. It gives the employer the opportunity to respond to it in a very, very, very um, fair manner, because we want also that the person who's being accused, we want them to also experience, have a fair opportunity to explain why they did what they did. Again, sometimes it's not always a personal thing. Nonetheless, it does not negate or excuse the behavior. It does not negate or excuse that. Okay, so we always want to ensure that toxic workplace environments are being addressed. The last resort for any employee should be to leave the workplace. It puts a tremendous strain on the employer when you just leave, did not give them the opportunity to correct the issue, knowing that you might have been a great employee. They may have respected you as a good employee, but because you didn't speak up, they now are left to have to try to figure this out. And that could put a business in a really, really bad position. As a customer, it doesn't really affect you too much when it comes to that. It's your money you're spending. So you can go wherever you want to spend your money. There is no real chain tying you down to that particular business or to whatever. However, it is, again, important to understand and remember that when we talk about this type of environment, when we talk about working in this environment, we must remember that we have to always ensure that we're maintaining the integrity of what we do. We cannot, we cannot go around lying on people as well. So if your accusation on a manager is that he did something because you're feeling a certain type of way for that day, I strongly urge you not to do that, because it will be found out that that's what you're doing, and it could be a different story. Employers and business owners should always be careful of who they place into management positions. Not every person that comes to you, or not every person that shines for a moment or a second, should be a manager. My suggestion has always been and will always be, as a professional who deals in management on a very high level, is that when you have someone that you want to place into a management position, there are some standards that you should follow. And one of those standards is the level of respect in which a person actually deals with others. If you should observe someone, observe how they deal with the general public, observe how they deal with their employees. More importantly, observe how they deal with the employees. Dealing with the employees is going to be the most telling sign of how that person is going to deal with the public. If a person is gentle but firm but assertive, if a person is gentle but they sometimes come off as being a little bit too hard, that might be a good person. That might be a good opportunity to speak to that person about just toning down the firmness a bit, right? You always want to have a firm person, obviously, a person who can exude authority when needed and when they have to. But you don't want a person who's always tight-fisted and firm-handed. The one thing that kills every business is a lack of communication. So if you're a senior executive or if you're executive manager and you're failing to respond to your employees and give them information, that could be a potential problem. I experienced something most recently where a manager in a business accused me of something, and it turned into an argument. And I just maintained my composure. I personally did not get upset about it. I simply just asked why this was being done, why this was being said. There have been numerous accounts of this happening on a consistent basis. This person, this individual, has been for a long time been pushing this agenda because they have their shortcomings. There are failures in their management structure. As a matter of fact, to be quite blunt and frank about it, my professional opinion, this person should never have been a manager. He's failed a multitude of times in other places, has always been a failure, and was only brought into a business just because he actually, he masked and lied, and because there are some other factors there, but because it was all a lie, right? And because there was no due diligence on the part of the person hiring him, and the person who hired him was also not the best person in the world, we ended up with this situation. That being said, the person who came in after that person should have been more attentive, and should have been more conscious of the type of individuals that was leaving, actually, the exiting party. You always strategize looking at that party and then the person that they hang. 9 out of 10 times, a bad manager will always hire a bad manager. So if someone is leaving a management position because on a bad note, 9 out of 10 times, if they just hired somebody, You might want to get rid of that person too, because that person might have been coached already. That person might just be just like that individual. So you might want to get rid of that person, okay? So these are just some little hints, some things that you want to kind of pay attention to. But again, this is what happened, and it turned into a situation. And the way I handled it is very, very, politely, very calmly. Something that is a lot of people would say, you should have, told them off and said, I didn't have any reason to do that. We had a very serious conversation. It was, in my opinion, I have maintained my composure, but unbecoming is what that individual showed themselves to be, unbecoming and unfit to be in that position. They raised their tone. They disrespected me. They made a lot of statements. It was a public display, a scene for no reason. It was an absolute disgrace. And very disappointed in the individual. I had a tremendous amount of respect for them for quite some time, and we've known each other for a long time, but it turned into this mess, right, for no reason. Not to mention the fact that I'm one of the people that actually have been there, to assist them in a lot of other ways, and it just simply turned into a mess. Am I angry about it? I'm not. Do I feel that this person, I had a problem? I don't have a problem. That person has the problem. They're the issue, not me. I don't have an issue. I'm fine. That's the reason why I didn't get upset. I'm going to be myself regardless. I'm going to do what I do, which is I'm going to go work and do my thing in the way I know best to do it. That's not going to affect my abilities to be me. However, it's just a display of how individuals who are frustrated, who do not understand how to do things, rather than to ask questions and learn and be coachable, you close off and then you attack others. This is toxic workplace environment 101. This is what it looks like when people are being accused, when things are happening in that manner. It is not conducive to successful business. Just look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Just look at the numbers of a business and look at the person running the business, and that'll tell you everything about them. It'll tell you everything about what's happening. No matter what they say, right? You got to look really closely at these things. Numbers tells us a lot. It paints a picture, a story about individuals. It paints a picture, a story about what actually is happening in the business. It paints a picture as to who you actually have operating for you. There's the 13 fatal errors. Fatal error number 1 is the failure to accept personal accountability. And that is the number one failure of management. The number one failure for most people in management is failing to accept personal responsibility and accountability. When you fail to do that, the only other areas in which you can direct is to the individuals who actually help you, the individuals who are there carrying the load and the burden for you. You actually hurt them. So there are numerous amounts of different points I can make out of that, but that ultimately happened. And it proved to me that, we are actually dealing with a toxic workplace environment. Employees feel like they don't want to come to work. People feel like they don't want to deal with this individual. The customers are talking about it. The employees are talking the same way. It's a negative environment. There's tons of Google reviews about these people. And it's just one of those things that, you kind of take it in for what it is, but you learn. Me being a high level manager, being in this position, understanding, having this business that I actually run, where I actually teach people how to effectively manage and how to effectively work with people. We do a lot of people centricism. I am able to identify these things, and I can tell you that it's not conducive to successful operations. It's not conducive to a successful operation or successful business. Hence the reason why it's so ironic that we wrote this article, and then directly after that we had this experience, and now here we are. This was witnessed by a multitude of different people, and it's just sad. But case in point, an example, we want to always avoid situations like that, and we want to make sure we have proper documentation. We want to make sure that we are always having open communication, not just with the individual, but with the people who are above them, so they are made aware. We have to give these people the opportunity to correct the actions of these individuals. We have to afford them the ability to do that, because God forbid it turns into something even greater, meaning it gets into let's say a legal forum, right? I'm not saying that that's my predicament, but it could be a multitude. I know numerous amounts of people where in other walks that I've dealt with, where they've had that situation, and there's documentation that's asked of them, and they can't provide that because they never thought, or they were never taught to do that. So it's extremely important. Customers, the same exact thing. You come into a place, you come into a business, you should always make a documented timeline as to what exactly is happening in that business. This is not to screw anyone over. This is not to get anyone in trouble. This is not to get take away from businesses. This is actually to help you. This is how to help you improve the quality of what you offer. Remember, when you say you're in the business of service, it means you're in the business of obligating people to come back to you. And there's a phrase called, we say it's service obligates. Service obligates you to come back. Service obligates people to come back to you. And if you do the best service you possibly can, you provide the best service, people come back. They'll come back in droves. They'll refer their friends, family, and everyone else. That is the idea behind this. But toxic management generally is an environment where hostility is created, where a hostile workplace or a hostile environment is created by the people who are entrusted to actually run the business. They're entrusted by the corporations, they're entrusted by owners, and they fail at that by creating these very, very unfortunate environments that people have to work in and actually visit. Why is it important that we do these articles, we do these videos? Well, we do it for a number of reasons because, again, the videos are follow-up to the articles. So, again, like I said before, ironically, this is something that we had planned for a while, and we did it and then the experience. But it's so important that you guys understand that identifying this stuff in the early stages can ultimately prevent more complicated, complex problems, and that's what we want to do. We also want to influence the customer experience. We're in the business of reputation management. So one of the things that we do at Northgate is that we actually help businesses like yours manage your reputation through the forensics investigations. We call it reputation forensics, where we actually dig into Google, Yelp, Bing. We get into all of the search engines, the review boards that they have. And we actually pull up your businesses and we go through all the reviews that you've received, and we actually provide you with on-site visits. So we go on the scene. We come in, sometimes we go in as just as regular customers, but for the most part, we'll go in announced, not to the employees, but obviously to the management staff, which is usually the senior management staff or the regional staff. And we'll go and we'll get a feel for what actually is happening. We come to you with an unbiased, multidimensional approach to management. And we do that by looking at things from a multitude of different angles. We want to be sure that we're delivering the most important part of your business, which is the reputation analysis in the most unbiased way. We want to ensure that when we look at your Google reviews, we want to make sure that when we look at your in-store or your in-business management and operations, that things are consistent. We understand that customers, employees, people, they rage post, and that can hurt you. And that's the reason why we want to come in and help you with that. This is why we help people ultimately with that. So that being said, one of the most important things is to ensure that when we look at your business, we're looking at it from a holistic position. We're looking at it from this point. We're doing these things to help you actually maintain and ensure that you're actually getting to the things and the goals that you want to through obviously securing and maintaining a positive reputation. Not every business can have 100% reputation, but we most certainly can help you have a pretty good standard when it comes to that. So one of the things that we do with that is such. We'll go into your shop, we'll go into your store. We visited tons of businesses. We visited Starbucks, we visited Pollo Camperos. We visited a bunch of different stores and restaurants, Dunkin' Donuts. We visited a bunch of places, and we've done our own independent reviews, right? We've done our own reviews on these places. Starbucks is, we've done some reviews for some of the district managers, just looking at the way that some of their folks actually interact to actually help bring in a good experience. You have to understand toxic workplace environment affects your customer base because your employees will respond to that toxic workplace and take that out on the customers, leading customers to not want to come back because of a negative experience that could have been avoided if management was addressed from the start. So one of the things that we do is we try to avoid that. We try to help in that realm. We try to bring that to a place where we're actually getting you guys the results that you need by removing some of these things. And then we get to the nitty and gritty, where we get down to the bottom of it, to the heart of the matter, and we just get those reviews removed. We get in with Google, we get in with Yelp, we get in with a lot of these places, and we say, hey, listen, these guys had these reviews on there. We've done our independent reviews of this, and this is not true. This is absolutely, it's false. And we're requesting that you remove this based on these factors. And we know the algorithms and the triggers, and we know how to go through that process, and we get it removed if indeed it is something that's invalid. We have a new customer here at a store down the street called Cook, a restaurant here on Broadway that they had a situation, as a matter of fact, and that's how I came into the picture. And his store was being attacked by people about stuff in the food and this, that, and the other. And we got in there and we immediately identified that the reviews that's being placed is not true. They're just false. They're just not legitimate reviews. There are people who are angry for whatever reasons are with things, different matters, situations. Maybe people just trying to get over on the system, not wanting to pay the price of the food that they have. And this is what we have. So what we do, we go in, we review, we identify, and obviously we try to help them restore the trust and confidence in the rest of their communities and population of people that they deal with by bringing them some of the more positive things. So that's what we do here. But again, the article that we wrote last week was ultimately just to give you guys a really, really good insight as to what reputation management is and how it can ultimately affect your business. The name of our company was Altitude Fitness Management for quite some time. It still is. We've now added onto it our parent company, which is Northgate Strategic Partners. That is our parent company. We have two distinctive locations in New York City, but we operate under the same name, under the same channels. So just wanted to put that out there so you guys know. If you hear Northgate, just think about Altitude Fitness Management Group and vice versa. On the Altitude side, we focus more so on building gyms. We help individuals build, design. We consult. We do market research and studies to help you actually come up with some of the best solutions for building your facility if that's something you're thinking about. We also get down to the construction aspect and help you actually build and design those facilities. So we're very much so involved in that process. And we've done several projects, right now we have a project that we're working on with Sage Property Realty. We've worked with them for quite some time. We consulted on that project, which is Temple Fitness, which is opening up sometime within the next year or so. That project has started, and they're working on that as we speak. So we were part of the consulting team. We're the consultants, the primary consultants that actually, from start to finish, that actually was involved in that project. And we're really, really happy that Sage decided to go with us as a vendor, as a partner. We love working with Sage, we love working with some of the other folks that we work with. But again, our most recent project, our biggest project, is that project. And once again, we do enjoy what we do. We love what we do on that side. On this side of the business, obviously, we're more so strategy. We deal a lot more on the business aspect of things. We work more so with businesses. We work with trying to help you establish, develop, strategies for successful growth. But also, there are other things that we also do in that realm. One of which is the CX Pro. That's our program. It's a new offering that we have, service offers called CX Pro. It's the customer experience, something that we do. We offer that to all of our clients and customers experiencing negative reputation reviews and management. So wanted to say that, want to put that and drop that in there. But the purpose of this video was to just give you guys a little background as to why we did that video. We love doing these videos. We love writing articles. We're going to write a lot more. This YouTube channel is actually connected. It's going to be on we're going to put it up on our LinkedIn page. It's going to be directly connected to LinkedIn, so check it out. I plan on doing a lot more learner videos like this, things to kind of touch on some of the things that we write, just to kind of bring it all together. But this is what we do. We consider ourselves to be the expert in this area. We're very, very good at what we do. We use a multitude of different tools. I myself right now, I'm reading again Tom Hopkins, the book. It's called How to Master the Art of Selling. I'm reading that book again. It is one of the most, I would say in my time reading, it's one of the most informative that I've read, and it has helped me tremendous amounts in my career. And so one of the things we always want to take these resources, we want to get into that, read a lot of books, get out there, ask for information and help. If you guys are interested in us helping you, please feel free to drop us a line in our inbox, in the comment section. Leave us a comment, drop us a line. We're more than happy to give you any sort of help that you want, and whether it's to build a gym, whether it's advice on your business. Just know that we're here to help you, and that's what we're here to ultimately convey. It's information to help get you to the next points in your business and in your life. Once again, from the folks here at Altitude Fitness Management Group, Northgate Strategic Partners, we want to thank you for joining us. And once again, we hope that this video helps somebody out there. Hoping to do a lot more like these, but check us out. Again, any questions, drop us a line. You can check us out on our website, www.altitudefitlife.com, or at www.northgatesp.com. Look forward to talking to you guys again soon.